Facilitating and leading teams. Lesson 7. Utilizing the power of people. Making effective decisions in groups. The primary purposes of a formal meeting should be 1. Communicate important information. 2. Increase project or process ownership. 3. Generate ideas. And/or 4. Make decisions. So 4 main things. Communicate important information, increase ownership, generate ideas, make decisions. Not necessarily in that order. Unfortunately, too many organizations waste time communicating information in a one-way fashion in meetings. Others take too much time to make decisions and still make bad ones. In this lesson, we want to look at some simple approaches that you can use to reduce decision-making time in meetings while also increasing decision quality. In general, we take too long to make decisions because we use approaches that are both opinion-based and primarily auditory in nature. To put it bluntly, we tend to talk things to death. Instead of using a formal decision-making process, ideally one that is fact-based to some degree, most people prefer to get their information visually. And so we want to make sure we include that information element as well. But think about it. How often do you see people trying to make decisions or even troubleshoot problems without using good visual aids? They're just using words. They're just using their auditory communication medium. They're missing out on the opportunity that can come with visual communication. Flip charts and whiteboards are not a waste of paper or space. They help people better understand the pluses and minuses of the different options that are being considered. Make the different options visible. Make the pros and cons of the different options visible. Don't just talk about them. It's important to hear everyone's perspective also when you're in a decision-making session. But at the same time, you want to do so in a structured manner. You want to do it in a way that makes the best use of everyone's time. Leaders lose credibility when they take too long to make a choice, or when they fail to lead the group towards the completion of a given agenda. Also, they waste time and money when they fail to complete the agenda on time or take too long to make a choice. Decision-making is a process, and in turn, it has a cycle time. It has a cost. It has quality ratios. Those metrics go with each decision that's made, even if you don't measure them. You can improve your decision-making process in 3 key ways. First of all, make the attributes of each option visible. Okay, what are the pluses and minuses of each option? Number 2, use facts to qualify each side of a decision whenever possible. No, don't just throw out adjectives. Try to put some numbers up there. Try to put some trends up there. Put some data up there. And finally, make an effort to use formal decision-making tools. It'll take some practice to get good at using these approaches, but as you do, you'll make better decisions in much less time. How effective are your team OODA loops? The Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act loop was introduced by Colonel John Boyd during the Korean War, way back in the day, back in the 1950s. And he was referring to the ability possessed by fighter pilots that allowed them to be successful in combat. The concept's application, however, is universal. Just watch other drivers during your ride to and from work. It's a cognitive thing. You'll see different levels of OODA loop proficiency in action. We observe, orient, decide, act ourselves through life each day, but we usually don't bother to examine how quickly or accurately our OODA loops function. OODA loop cycle times are measured in milliseconds. Mind speed's another term for OODA loop speed. Most people are not aware of their OODA loops. And you can actually decrease these cycle times. You can get faster at observing, orienting, deciding, and acting with practice. I've been intrigued by the concept of OODA loops for a few years now. Raising a teenager that was equally fascinated with and proficient at nonviolent video games, those games tend to exercise one's OODA loops, it only fueled my intrigue. As I experimented with both video and computer games myself, I became more perceptive as to how well my OODA loops worked in different situations. I also noticed how many of these games actually taught systems thinking also. The question is, did my decision-making ability improve as a result of playing these games? Which OODA elements in particular became more enhanced? There are some interesting ways to view OODA loops in action. When you stop at a four-way stop along with other cars, you get to witness OODA loops at work. In fact, whenever you're driving in traffic, many OODA loop cycles are happening simultaneously all around you, including your own. Similarly, you can see OODA loops in action at self-service grocery checkouts, airline check-in counters, and airplane boarding. The sad part is that many people's OODA loops work very slowly. They haven't worked very hard at making them efficient and effective. If individuals have OODA loops, it stands to reason that teams or groups of individuals have them as well. Team effectiveness would in turn be a function of the collective OODA loop speed of the group. Think about the teams you've been on recently. Were they efficient and accurate in their decision making? Think about your own OODA loops. When do they work well? And when does it take a little more time than you'd like to make it through the 4 steps? Will OODA loop speed become a key human performance measure in the coming years? The costs of poor decision making. Why do we make poor decisions? What do our poor decisions cost us? Some would say that the main thing leaders get paid to do is make decisions, make choices. If that's the case, one would think that we would have better approaches in place for measuring decision effectiveness. We appear to be assuming that if leaders make the wrong decisions, the outcomes will be reflected in the performance measures for the organization. Unfortunately, this assumption is flawed. Because organizations are a collection of integrated systems and many decisions, both good and bad, are being made each day, it's essentially impossible to quantify the net effect of just one decision that is made on a given day for a given work system. This doesn't mean we should give up on trying to gauge decision-making effectiveness, however. We not be able to measure whether a decision was truly good or not, but we can still try to measure decision cycle time, decision cost, and decision quality, even if decision quality is a subjective perspective from the customer. Plus, we can attempt to improve our decision-making processes over time. It's been my experience that good decisions can be made very quickly if they're based on a comprehensive set of trends and a formal process is used. I've even seen the case where a gut decision was not any less effective than one that a group of people might have spent hours talking about. I'm not advocating shooting from the hip all the time, but I do think that we should give a long, hard look towards the incremental value add associated with spending 5 hours to make a decision versus 2 or 3. What is the incremental value add of the added time? I'm convinced that fast decisions that are based on a comprehensive set of data and a formal process are better than long, drawn-out decisions that are primarily grounded in opinions being thrown at each other in the form of a discussion. The bottom line is this: poor decision-making processes cost time and money. By trying to use more formal approaches that are more rooted in facts, especially a balanced set of trends, you will make better decisions in less time.